And we are live. All right. All right. Welcome to the Oregon Google Apps Summit 2015. My name is Ben Mabbitt. I am a system administrator for North Clackamas School District, just on the other side of Portland. And we're a district of about 17,000 students and across, I don't know, 18, 19 different schools. So, oh. Somebody watching the Hangout, or? Oh, is it going through the projector? Oh. Let me mute myself. Who is that joker? I'm getting the playback from the Hangout, yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So, sorry for everyone who's getting a horrible echo watching online. So we're going to talk today about Chromebook management. We have been using Chromebooks for about 4 years now. I think this is our 5th year with Chromebooks in our schools. We started with 10, and we have about 5,000 some now. So really, we've gone whole hog with Chromebooks. Almost all of our computer purchases the last couple of years have been Chromebooks. With the exception of some staff laptops, but for student use, it's been almost entirely Chrome. We've just found them to be reliable, affordable, and easy to use. So it's easy for us to get them out into staff hands, get kids using them. The turnaround time from when we place an order to when a kid is using that device is way, way ahead of everything else we've used. From when we hit submit on an order page to when a kid is using that device, we can do it sometimes in 2 weeks. It's really, really amazing. So if you're not using Chromebooks, I highly recommend you look into it. I have a couple models I can show you. We've demoed pretty much every Chromebook model in existence, so if you have any questions about specific models, I can probably answer some of those. Today, though, we're going to talk about the enterprise management. So with Chromebooks, Google also offers a management license that you can purchase. It's a per-device purchase, and it's a one-time purchase, so you don't have to pay for it yearly. It's not a yearly subscription or anything like that. It's a $30 cost, although depending on what vendor you're going through, you may get a break on that. We've had some vendors that have offered us, a couple bucks off the license, so $28 or $27 or something like that. As a way to kind of get the price per unit down. You don't have to buy that to use Chromebooks. You could use Chromebooks without that management license, but I think you're going to want it, and I'll show you today what you can do with it and some of the tools that it gives you. It's really worth that $30 cost in the one time. One nice thing is it used to be tied to the machine, so when you bought a Chromebook, you had to buy the management license with the Chromebook at the time, and then that license went with that machine. So every time you bought a Chromebook, you had to buy a new management license. Now, though, the management license are not necessarily tied to one piece of hardware. So if you buy 30 Chromebooks and you buy 30 management licenses, and then one of them dies and you have to replace it, you don't have to buy another license. You can just buy another Chromebook, you deprovision the old device out of your domain, and then you provision the new one. And we'll talk about provisioning and all that as we go. So we're going to get right into it. If you have any questions as we're going along, feel free to jump in, raise your hand, shout at me, whatever you want to do. I'm happy to stop at any time and answer a question you may have. That's absolutely fine. If anyone has any information to add to the conversation, if there's something that I've left out, feel free to jump in. If I say something when I say something that's wrong, because I almost certainly will, feel free to correct me. Google moves fast, and as soon as you think you know exactly what they're doing and every setting that's there and what you can and can't do, they'll change something. So there's probably something in the management console that's changed that I'm not aware of, so if I give incorrect information, please feel free to correct me. And if I tell you that something can't be done and I'm right today, I may not be right tomorrow. So you can always check back later with Google and see, okay, did that feature I wanted, is that there now? It might be. So, all right. Here's my contact information. If you have any questions after the fact, if you'd like to contact me, feel free to do so. This is also on the Summit website. You can find a link to my Google Plus profile as well as my email address. Feel free to contact me anytime. That's absolutely fine. So just again, a quick recap. 17,000 students. We've been using Google Apps for Education since 2009. That's in production. We actually had our domain for about a year before we started putting staff and students into it, just playing around with it and seeing what we wanted to do with it. We did our first pilot at the elementary level with our Chromebooks in 2011. We bought 10 of them for one of our schools who had a principal that was willing to guinea pig them for us, and now they're the hot ticket item that everyone's demanding. So we've got about 5,000 of them. So Chromebook management, what exactly does it do for you? So one of the things you can do is set the look and feel of the device. You can manage things like what's on the desktop background and what bookmarks the users have and who can and can't log into it, things like that. So it gives you some control, it gives you some preferences, things like that. It lets you manage apps for your users. You can say these users are going to have these apps when they log into a Chromebook. We'll get more into that. That can be a little bit complicated. And it's roughly $30 a device. Again, that's $30 is the list price. If you buy it from Google, that's what you'll pay. If you get it from someone else, you may get a little bit of a discount. But I think the absolute cheapest we've ever gotten it was $26 a license, and that was when we were putting a really big order in. So it's not going to get much below 30 bucks. Again, you can purchase them separately from the device now. That didn't used to be the case. Most vendors will not do that, though. So CDWG is who we buy most of our Chromebooks through. They're not going to sell you a management license app without a Chromebook to go along with it. But Google will. So if you find yourself needing licenses, you can call up Google now, and it's kind of a pain because calling Google is always interesting. Their phone stuff is kind of hit and miss, but you can do it if you if you persevere, like Laura taught us to this morning. You can eventually get through to someone at Google who will sell you those management licenses. So, okay, so the first thing we need to talk about with Chromebooks is device versus user, and this is really important because this is how everything is done on a Chromebook as far as the management goes. The split between what's a device setting and what's a user setting. And this is where you may decide that, you know, maybe you don't need these management licenses after all, because the user settings are independent of the device. They have nothing to do with what device someone's on. It's all tied to their user account. And you don't need the Chromebooks to be enrolled in management in order to provide those user settings. Those are built into the Google Apps admin console, which we'll show you in a minute here. So if all you want to do is user controls, you don't need the management licenses. If you want to do device management, you do. And I think you'll want it. Again, it's that for that $30 you get quite a bit. So we'll go through what those things are. So device settings apply regardless of the user. That means that if you have a setting set for this Chromebook that says, you know, this Chromebook is only going to join this particular Wi-Fi network, then it doesn't matter who logs into this Chromebook. It could be a student, a staff member, someone from out, you know, a parent that's got a Google account. Doesn't matter. Whoever logs into this device is going to get that management setting. User settings apply regardless of device. So if you take my user account and say this user account can't go to this URL, then it doesn't matter what Chromebook I'm signed into. It could be a school Chromebook, it could be my own personal Chromebook at home, it could be any Chrome device anywhere. If I'm signed in with that account, I do get that management. So that can be important too. If your kids are going to go home and use their accounts, whatever management you have on them is going to apply wherever they're signed into that account. So it's important to keep this in mind because it's going to shape how you do things. If you want to make it so that whoever touches this Chromebook has these rules, great, you're going to do a device setting. But if you want the teachers to have a different experience on the device than the students do, you need to use user management, because if it's the device, it doesn't matter who's signed in, it's going to apply. The good news is, in most cases, you don't have to choose. It's usually Google's going to make the choice for you. Most things are user settings. The device settings are fairly limited. Most things you're going to manage in Chrome are going to be at the user level. Okay, so before we get into all of this about what you can and can't do, let's talk about actually enrolling the devices in your app's domain. So, I'll show you where the setting is, but one of the first things you'll see in device enrollment is this feature called auto-enrollment, which says auto-enroll the devices in your domain, which sounds like it will auto-enroll the devices in your domain. Unfortunately, that is not true. Unless you have a very particular set of circumstances that you almost certainly won't have. So, in order for auto-enrollment to happen, which means that someone signs into the Chromebook for the first time and it says, oh, you belong on the Hillsborough domain, so here we're going to enroll you, and off you go. That's only possible if you have purchased the Chromebooks with management from a vendor who gets their stock directly from Google. I can almost guarantee you that if you've heard of the vendor you're working with, they are not a vendor who gets their stock directly from Google. The vendors that get their stock from Google are little tiny garage shops in California almost exclusively. In fact, I don't think there are any outside of California. Anybody big like Amazon or CDW or Best Buy or Dell or anybody that you've heard of is getting their stock directly from the OEM. Either they're making it themselves or they're buying it direct from Samsung or whoever it is. What that means is that if you call up CDWG and say, hey, I want 30 Samsung Chromebooks with management, they send them to you. But Google has no idea that you're the ones who bought those particular 30 Samsung Chromebooks. So they don't have a record of your domain owning the being assigned the serial numbers of those 30 Chromebooks. So auto-enrollment is not going to work. Again, it only works if Google already knows before you even get them out of the box that these serial numbers go with your domain. And that's only possible if you're buying them from one of these little vendors that Google partners with. Usually, it's going to be better unless you're only ordering a couple here and there. If you're ordering them in large numbers, it's going to be better to go through somebody big, and you're going to get better price, you're going to get better service, it's going to be quicker, but this auto-enrollment piece is not going to work, which means you have to get them enrolled somehow. So get someone else to do it for you.
How much different is the price to go that route?
A couple different options there. So first of all, if you're buying enough of them, you can talk to the vendor and say, we'd really like you to do this for us, and we'd really like it to be free. And if you're buying enough of them, you might be able to get away with that. I will tell you that we have a deal worked out with CDW where we pay them $10 for white glove service, which includes enrollment, and they give us a $10 discount on every unit we buy. So they basically give us the white glove service for free. We're buying a lot of Chromebooks from them, though. So whether you can work out that same deal, I don't know. We've also worked with Micro K12, who again charges $10 for that white glove service. Micro K12, though, for $10 will also asset tag the machine, which is nice. They'll apply the asset tag. They'll give us a spreadsheet that says, here's the serial numbers and their asset tags, and we can just put that right in our inventory system. So we've done that a couple times. Yeah.
Micro also laser.
Yeah.
But that's $10.
Yeah, they'll laser etch too. So if you're gonna buy white glove service, Micro K12 might be a good vendor to go through because you're gonna get a lot for your $10. CDW, their white glove services, they enroll it for us, but they don't asset tag it. They don't do etching. They don't do anything like that. So
it is an offered service, though.
Yes.
They can do that.
Yes, they can. I think they charge a little more for it. But another one we've got. Yeah.
Do they do bulk boxing as well?
No.
Or do they like 10 of them, so it's a lot easier for unboxing purposes?
Unfortunately, no. We've. I don't know what that is. Anyway, we've asked for that. And they've talked about maybe doing it in the future because, yeah, getting 5,000 cardboard boxes is a real pain in the butt. But not yet.
I think they do it in Las Vegas also, so they're shipping
Yeah.
the stuff that's white glove.
Right.
I hate that.
Yeah.
The stuff they're white gloving, they're then shipping. So
Yep.
they're getting it in like 1 unit boxes, and then they turn around and ship it.
Yeah. So the other one we've dealt with for large numbers is Dell. And let me preface this by saying that this was when Dell first started selling their Chromebooks, and from what I've heard, things have improved quite a bit. So you may have a completely different experience than we did. But with Dell, they wanted, I think it was $30 per device for their white glove service, and their turnaround time for them was 6 to 8 weeks if we got white glove. So it was basically they were contracting it out with somebody else. So they were going to ship the devices to this other company who was then had this 6 to 8 week backlog. They were going to do their thing, and then we were going to get them. And so that really wasn't an option for us. So with that large Dell order, we did not get white glove service. Instead, we hired a couple high school students to come in after school for a couple weeks and enroll devices for us. So we paid them minimum wage. They came in after school, unpacked Chromebooks, enrolled them, put the asset tag on, and then put them in a cart. And they did that for a couple weeks. So if you have, teachers' assistants, your TAs, or tech help in your building, or just some kids who are bored, great. But if you've got a little bit of money and you can hire some students to do it, that's great too. But however you need to do it, it's worth doing, and there's just lots of ways you can do that without having to have your staff go through and enroll thousands of devices or however many it's going to be. So we've got some resources here. I don't think I actually remembered to link this slide deck to the session page, but I will do so. So you'll be able to get to this, but it's easy to find this documentation. I've got links here to the user management portion of Chrome management, the device management portion, and wipe and enrollment documentation. So if you get your Chromebooks, and if you're like us and you have lots of donors choose projects going on, this might be a scenario you encounter where Chromebooks come into your district without you knowing about them, and then it turns out they've been used for a couple weeks already. Once someone logs into a Chromebook, you've missed your window to enroll it without wiping the device back to factory. It has to be enrolled before the first user signs in. So if you have a set of Chromebooks that you want to enroll but they've already been used, you have to go through and wipe them first, and then you can enroll them. And Google has documentation on how to do that. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes per device to run through and wipe everything and then enroll it again. It's a pain, so if you can enroll them before they're used, you definitely want to do so. But again, when you get those surprise donors choose orders that show up, you might have to do it this way. So, all right, so that's enough slides. Let's get into it. So when you go into the Google Admin Console, they have a section here for device management. And when you go into your device management, it's going to tell you how many devices you have of different types. We can see that we have one mobile device that we are managing. That's my work phone that I'm doing some testing with. Other than that, we're not doing anything with mobile devices on the Android side yet. Just so people know, there is also management in the admin console for Google Play for Education, which is the Android side of the Google ecosystem. There's a lot of things you can do with that now. It's a pretty cool system. Unfortunately, it really is built around a one-to-one environment. The way it's set up, they definitely are intending it to be every student is going to have their own tablet. There's some ways around that. You can make generic accounts. You can make a generic Google account for each device. That's how they recommend doing it now if you're going to share devices among students. But that's kind of a pain, and we just don't have the budget to do one-to-one. So it's not something we've really looked into. But it is really cool. You can do some really cool stuff with Google Play for Education. So check that out if Android tablets are something you'd be interested in. Yeah.
They just came out with Google Cardboard, and they're starting to use more mobile devices to do the virtual field trips, things like that.
Yeah.
So would that fall under mobile devices?
Yeah.
Managed?
Yeah. Yeah. Google Cardboard is their little. All these companies are making these like $1,000 VR headsets, and Google came out with like a $8 cardboard thing you can fold your phone into that does not the same thing, but it's pretty cool. So Google Cardboard, if you haven't seen it, check that out. So we're going to go into our Chrome devices here. So this is what you can see when you have devices enrolled in your domain. You can see a list of every device you've got, and I can see, okay, I am seeing 1 through 30 of 5,292 Chrome devices that are enrolled in my domain. I can also see how many management licenses I'm using. So I have 5,370 management licenses, and I'm using, or that's how many I'm using out of 5,475 devices. So I know right now I have a cushion of 5 enrollment licenses. I try to keep a few available. So we've bought a couple extras just in case, so that if our enrollment gets ahead of our license purchases for some reason, it's not going to bring everything to a screeching halt. So I try to keep 5 or 10 free. If you have, a couple hundred Chromebooks, that's not really that big a deal. But when you start getting into the thousands and they're coming and going all the time, you might want to do that.
I usually keep between 100 and 200 because of the
Yeah.
donors choose and other donations, and we've had Chromebooks that have been out there for years before we had our domain.
Right.
So we're always encountering like, oh, there's a lab we didn't.
Yeah, we run across that too, and what we're running across that from is when we were young and naive and thought that auto-enrollment actually meant it would auto-enroll the devices, we just said, oh, great, we don't have to do anything, and we shipped a whole bunch of them out to the buildings without touching them first. And then discovered, wait, why aren't we seeing these in our management? Yeah, that was the sad tale of how we figured out that auto does not necessarily mean auto. So yeah, every once in a while we run across one of those and go, oh, okay, here's another 30 that never got enrolled, and we'll go through. So yeah, I would like to have more than 5 free, so it's time to buy some more, it looks like.
It's not 105?
I don't do math. Don't do that. So yeah. So we're good for a while then, yes. Look at that. Fantastic. All right. Thank you for saving us some cash. All right. So what can I see in here? I can see the serial number of the device. I can see that it's been provisioned. I can see an asset ID. If you want to, you can go in and enter your asset. If you've got a barcode number or something like that, you can put that into the management here. Yeah.
Is there an easy way?
No.
Literally one by one.
Pretty much. There
is.
Yeah.
You can use Chromebook inventory.
Yeah. It's a
multi-changes. That basically puts it into a little sheet.
Yeah.
And then you can do a bunch of them and change all the information and export it and updates all of it for you.
Yeah.
So you can do hundreds of them at a time.
Okay. One more time.
So there's an add-on for Google Sheets called Chromebook Inventory. What you can do is it'll build out all the organizations that you have in subworks, and you can say, I want to grab all the devices within this time period, or all of them from all time periods. It'll grab all of those devices and it'll list it out in columns, and you can go through and say, okay, I want to change these 10 to this subwork, or pull them out to the root or whatever and change that. I want to add the asset tag for all of these. I want to add notes for all of these, and I want to add the location, because there's 3 customized fields that you can actually fill out yourself. So you can do that all in that spreadsheet. Then you use the add-on. They have the export, and they have the update. The export brings all of it in. It's kind of backwards. And then
Update sets it back.
Update sends it back, and it'll update the entire admin console. Then you don't have to do the one at a time thing where you just click on one, edit it, go back, click on one, edit it. So.
Okay, so that's new to me. I knew. Yeah, when I first looked at it, you could pull everything into a Google Sheet, and then you could update your Google Sheet. I didn't know they could actually send back into the console now. Okay.
Yeah, when you basically use the add-on to update it, then after you change everything, it'll say, hey, you're about to change all this information.
Okay.
Anything you change on that sheet, it pushes back. So if you don't make any changes, even though you do update, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But if you were to change the org or the notes or the asset ID, all that stuff is pushed back to your console.
Okay, they must have opened up the API for that then. That's good.
I think
Yeah.
I also noticed recently that when there's an option for when you're enrolling the device, it prompts you for the asset ID.
Oh. Okay.
I think I remember seeing that.
That was an update this summer.
Okay. I haven't actually enrolled any in a while, so yeah. Okay.
And we have like CDWG and Micro K-12 enrolling, so that,
Yeah.
they're slapping the tag on at the same time. So.
Yeah. Are they putting it in?
No,
And then
it-
roll
I
it?
haven't gotten to that
Okay.
yet, but
that's-
Okay.
Yeah, we use the same vendors and it does not do that.
Okay.
Even though they do asset types.
Okay.
So that's always been.
Yeah, that was something that Google had folks actually attend this event a couple times, and that was one of the big things I was hammering them on was like, we need a way to update this. And they said, we've got an API we're working on, it's coming, and then I never heard anything. But so they must have rolled it out then. If these guys can send back to the console, they must have an API for it. That's great. So yeah, good news. You can get that in here now without going through one at a time and entering them in. So yeah, we don't have any asset IDs in here because of that. You can also specify a location, and you can put notes in here if you want. So we haven't done any of that in here because previously it was difficult to do, and we have our own inventory system where we have all this stuff. So if I have a Chromebook that I really need to look up information about, I can just go look up that serial number in our inventory system and find out everything I need. But if you want, you can click on a device here. So I can see a couple things. Last time it fetched policy was today. Great. So somebody's using it right now. I can go in and see what version of Chrome OS it's got. Okay, it's got 45.0.2454, so it's up to date. And I can see that it was first enrolled July 28th of 2015. So this is when we bought this summer. Let's go back. And then there's custom fields here. So asset ID, user. User gets filled in with the user account that enrolled the device. So whatever account is used to enroll, that's what's going to fill into that user. So ctlnclac.org, that's an account we made for CTL to use to enroll our devices. So that's what's showing up there. I can edit this and put notes or locations in if I want to. But sounds like that Chromebook inventory, is that what it was? Chromebook inventory is giving me the way to do that, if that's something you want to do.
Yeah, we did about 600 this summer.
Okay. Yeah. So definitely check that out. That's going to be much better than doing it through this. Okay. So that's about it for the hardware. A couple things you can do in here, though, is you can move your devices to other organizations. So here I can see all the different organizations I have set up in my Google Apps domain. And for you Microsoft folks, it's like an OU and Active Directory, basically, is what they're going for there. And we'll get more into what you can do with those later, but that's how you can move things around. Another important one, though, is this deprovision. So if this device, for whatever reason, has left the district, we recycled it because it got old, or a kid dropped it and it broke, or whatever it is, if this device is no longer being used, I can come in here and deprovision the device. And we won't actually do this, but I've got a couple options. I can wipe the device. So, I'm telling it that I understand I must wipe the device if I want to get it back into the domain. And then I'm going to tell them whether this is a replacement or upgrade. Because, of course, you're not just getting rid of the Chromebook. You're either going to get another one or you're upgrading to a new one. So I'm sure Google uses this data for marketing or research or whatever it is, but it doesn't affect you at all what you pick here. You just say, yeah, I know I need to wipe it. Yes, it's a replacement or whatever it is, and hit deprovision. That will take that device out of your domain, and it will free up the license it was using. So your license count will tick up by 1, and now you can apply that license to another device. The other thing that's nice in here is disable. If you have a Chromebook walk off, you can choose to disable the device, and then whenever it's as far as I know, if someone's logged in, it immediately signs them out. And if no one's logged in, then next time it goes up to the sign-in screen, instead they're just going to get a big warning that says this device has been disabled, please return device to North Clackamas School District or call technology. This works wonders when a computer wanders off of a cart, third period, and the teacher says, I had 30 at the start of the class and now I have 29. It's amazing how quickly they show it back in the cart if you just disable them, and they magically come back. It's really nice. So this has caused quite a few devices to wander back to the cart that probably otherwise would have wandered off. So it's a really nice feature. Definitely something you should set up if you've got devices that you think might wander off. Of course, if it's someone that actually already took it home, they may just toss it in a dumpster if they can't use it anymore. But hey, at least your word will get around pretty quick that it's not worth stealing these because you're not going to be able to use them. So we know our students have kind of gotten wise to that now, that there's no point in taking one of these. It's going to get shut down, and it's going to be a brick. So also, I think they suspect we can tell where it is. We can't, but I think they know. They think maybe we've got a GPS radio in it or something. But and we're not going to tell them that we don't. We'll let them think that if that's what they think. So that's it for the inventory piece. Let's actually start taking a look at what you can do with the management. And I'll go back to device management here. We're doing a pretty basic right now. I'll show you our structure again in a second here, but it's basically we have a couple organizations that are really specific use cases, like a staff member that for whatever reason we don't want them to have email right now or something like that. A couple little ones like that where there's maybe 1 or 2 people in it. Almost everything is in either staff, if you're a staff member. Can somebody grab the door over there? Is there room for it to close? Or sorry, just getting a little noisy in the passing area. Thank you very much. So we have a big one for staff. Every staff member is in there. We have one for secondary. Every middle and high school student's in there. And we have one for elementary. So it's really 3 different ones that we have. We are probably going to need to make that more granular going forward. I think we're getting towards the end of where we can get away with it, having it be that general. But so far, that's worked for us to, and it's nice to be able to say, yeah, if you're a staff member, it doesn't matter where you are, these are the settings you're going to have. If you're a high school student, it's going to look like this. If you're a elementary student, it's going to look like that. But we're getting to where there's enough of them out there and enough specialization that people are going to want to do that I think we'll have to at least break it out a little more by grade level than we have. Maybe not by school necessarily, but I think we'll probably get there too.
Do you build it off user then versus device? What device is that on the user since you're so restricted on the user?
Yeah, we don't do much on the device side. Our goal is that any of our users can pick up any of our Chromebooks and have the exact same experience they did on another one. So we're trying to keep our device settings uniform across every device we have, so that it doesn't matter what Chromebook you're on. If you're on a Chromebook at one school and you go to another school, it's going to look exactly the same. Again, we'll see how long we can keep that up, but that's our goal. And so far, we've been able to do that. So if I go into Chrome management here,
how do you feel about a school coming and approaching you and saying, we'd like our logo to be on the back of all our Chromebooks? I know it's pushing it maybe, but...
You mean etched into the...
No, your wallpaper.
Oh.
Look and feel stuff.
Yeah, I'd probably be willing to do that. I mean, it's that's a user setting, so we'd have to... Yeah, that's a user setting, yeah. So we'd have to break them out. But yeah, I mean, if somebody really wanted it, I'd probably do it. I mean, we've gotten to the point where I've kind of... I think I'm going to have to do that at some point anyway, so if that was the catalyst, that's okay. I mean, if I wasn't otherwise going to move that direction, I'd tell them, sorry, have your kids go set it if you want that to be the background. But since I think that's the way the wind's blowing anyway, yeah, sure. Okay, so when I go into device management, I've got user settings up at the top, and I've got a couple other things. Public session settings we're not going to get into too much here, but you can set up a public session for your Chromebooks so that if someone's come in that doesn't have a Google account in your domain and wants to use a Chromebook, you can supply them with a public session, and then you can say, okay, they can get on the Chromebook and they can do XYZ, but they can't do whatever. They can't change the Wi-Fi network or whatever. You can basically give a guest setting on the Chromebook if you want to. We don't do that. We want people to actually sign in with an account. We don't have anyone using our devices that doesn't have an account in our domain. So user settings and device settings are the two big ones we're going to go through right now. So let's start with device settings, since that's kind of the most basic way to manage these. And this is a long list of stuff. Some of this may apply to you, some of it may not, some of it may interest you, some of it may not. All of this is documented really well. Google has really good documentation for all of this. So if there's something that you want to know more about that I don't get into detail about, you can find lots of information online. Feel free to ask a question if you have one, but don't feel like you need to catch all of this right now. There's good documentation out there. You don't need to write down everything you're seeing here. There's going to be a lot of information we're going to pour through. So, okay, so first thing we have, yeah.
Any school district around here supporting cloud print?
Yes.
How's that work out?
We have a Microsoft Print server in every school, so we were able to use Cloud Print itself versus many of the other options out there. So we have a Google account that owns all the printers at that school. So each school is kind of their own bubble.
Yeah.
And then we have it associated with the staff. We're only doing it with staff members right now. So it's automatically associated with the staff group. The owning account for each of the printers is in the group that the printers are shared to. So we have to one time accept those printers. Because that account is in the group and it's the owner, it automatically accepts it. So all the staff members just automatically get it.
Yeah.
Do you have the issue of the printer go to sleep and then when you try to
So for anyone watching online, we're talking about cloud printing right now.
We have had some issues recently with Google Cloud Print. Haven't quite figured out what's going on, but yes, the offline or ending job.
So yeah, let's get into this then. So cloud printing is an option you can manage on your. It's a device setting, so you can say these devices can print to these printers. A couple years ago, the first couple years I gave this presentation, I strongly encouraged everyone to not do that because it didn't work. It just didn't work. If you had 30 Chromebooks print, 10 of the print jobs would print right now. 10 of them would print 6 hours later, and the other 10 would just disappear off into the ether. However, it has gotten a lot better, and I know there are several districts that have gone forth and set it up and had success with it. So it can be done. It can be managed fairly. That's the other thing, is it can be managed fairly easily now. In the early days, you had to have a device, have a computer on, running the Chrome browser with a plug-in set up that would share a printer, and you had to share it per each user. So if someone wanted a kid to be able to print, they had to go onto that computer and add them to it was just a mess. It's much, much better now. So if that's something that you want to do, and I know in some cases it's something you have to do, then by all means. However, you'll notice that for us, if I hit manage here, you're not going to see anything under cloud printers. And that's because early on with our Chromebooks, we made the decision that we were not going to print from them. For two reasons. One, the technical side just wasn't there yet. And two, we wanted these devices to be paperless. And as the technical side has caught up, we've kind of reevaluated and gone, okay, do we still want to stick with this? Now that we can provide this functionality, do we want to? And ultimately our answer was no, we like these devices being paperless. For a couple reasons. One, the principals love it because their copier budget has gone way down. So they're on board with getting more Chromebooks because it's a cost savings for them. They save money on the device up front, and then they save money on printing costs because they're not printing from them as much. And two, part of the push with these Chromebooks is we're really trying to push Google Apps for education. We're trying to get our teachers using Google Apps, using Google Classroom, having their kids do digital turn-in of their work, all that kind of stuff. And, much like anything, if the path of least resistance is the old way, then that's how people are going to do things. So if it's easiest just to hit print and have it come out of the printer and you get your red pen out and mark up the paper, then that's what people are going to do. If we make it a little harder to do that, say you can print stuff, but you got to go to the computer lab, or you got to get your teacher laptop out and you got to sign into Google and print it out. They still have the ability to do it, but it's just that little bit extra step, and then they go, okay, maybe I'll try this Google Classroom thing after all. I'll give it a shot. It hasn't always been a success. We have had some teachers that have just not quite been able to make that leap, but we've had some others that have said, I don't know why I didn't do this 10 years ago. This is fantastic. Well, they didn't do it 10 years ago because it wasn't as easy as it is now, but if that's a possibility in your district, and I know it isn't always. I know sometimes just the idea that teachers wouldn't be able to print from something is just completely alien thinking. But if it's something that you think could maybe work, you might think about it, yeah.
Could you set up a Chromebook so that I'm a special ed teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and I have some students that need to have that visual where they back right through and make copies.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to set it up for just one computer to be able to help?
Yeah, you could. You would have to have that computer be in its own OU, one of these groups over here. It would have to be in its own OU, but yes, you could do that.
We have a sense that the school I work at, where the teachers just take care of printing for those students all the time, so they need to have something printed for them.
Yeah. And it's something that a lot of districts are doing now. There's plenty of people out there that are printing through their Chromebooks. So if it's something you're interested in doing, there's a district that's doing it. I know Portland Public's doing a ton of that. Thank you, by the way, because I can't tell you how many staff members have come up and said, my spouse works in Portland Public, and they can print from their Chromebooks. So you said you said Chromebooks couldn't print. Like, I didn't say they couldn't print. I said they wouldn't print. So yes, thank you, Portland Public.
Yeah, and it's kind of now where students can't print. Teachers basically, they've either gone with the paperless or they've taken on, I'll print the assignments for you.
Yeah.
And if it's not necessary.
Yeah. So I talk about the evils of printing, but there's some cases where it's just going to have to be that way. You're going to have to set it up, and it is an option. It's something you can do, and it does work pretty well these days. So the first thing on here, though, forced re-enrollment. This is something you probably do want to have set up. What this means is that if and or when your students discover that they can take your Chromebooks out of management by wiping them, and unfortunately there's not a way to prevent them from doing that. There's no way to stop the ability to wipe a device. If you put the keystroke in and go through, you can wipe it back to factory, and that takes it out of the domain, and it's no longer managed. Not great. However, this forced re-enrollment setting will make it so that if a student wipes a device and takes it out of your management, the first time anyone signs into that device, it's going to come up and say, hey, this device has been associated with this domain, and we're going to re-enroll it now. Thanks. And it goes through and does that, which is great. We used to have problems where the school would discover, hey, this device got unenrolled somehow. It's been unenrolled for weeks now. Kids have been doing God knows what. Now if they unenroll one, the next time someone signs in, it comes right back. So this auto-enrollment piece does work because the device has already been enrolled in your domain once. So Google has a record that this serial number goes with this domain, and when that device gets logged into again, it goes, wait a minute, hang on, this belongs over here, what's going on? And puts it back in. So good thing to do there. Cloud print we talked about a bit. Guest mode. Guest mode is a way for someone to sign into the device without an account, and then they can just do anything. There's no restrictions on what they can do in guest mode. So it's a little bit different from a public session in that case, where you're not able to set the parameters for what they can and can't do or what their session's going to look like. They just get on as a guest and they can do whatever they want. We have that turned off. We just don't feel like they need to do that, but if that's something, maybe you have one in your office that parents can come in and use or something, you might allow guest mode there. Sign-in restriction, you can have a list of either email addresses So if you had a set of Chromebooks and you only wanted certain users to be able to log into those, you could list their email addresses here, and then only those people can use those devices. Or you can do it by domain. So that's what we've done here. So if you're signing in with an account that's either nclac.org, which is our students, or at nclac.k12, which is our staff, or airtest.org, which was the Smarter Balanced Assessment domain. Actually, we can take that out now because they're not doing it that way anymore. But if you're signing in with an account from one of those three domains, you go through just fine. If you're signing in from an account that's not in one of those domains, it's not going to let you in. So if the students come in and want to sign in with their personal Gmail account, they can't do that. We want them to use our accounts when they're in our building. So that's probably something to think about. But again, if it's a situation where you were going to have, someone from outside your district using the Chromebooks, that's going to be a problem because they're not going to have an account in your domain most likely. A new feature that just came in the last couple months is autocomplete domain. I think this is going to be a nice one for us. We're going to have to do a little bit of shifting around to make this work. What this does is, if you put a domain in, then at the sign-in page, it'll automatically put that domain in for them. So right now, when our students sign in, they have to type in their username at nclac.org and then their password. If we put this in and said nclac.org here, it would fill that part in. So they just have to put their username in, the domain would already be there, and then their password. Makes it just a little quicker and easier for the kids to sign in. Yeah.
You mentioned you have multiple domains. Our district does the same. How you handle having multiple domains, you're going to make it automatic to fill it out.
That's why we don't have it turned on yet.
As soon as you hit at, the autocomplete goes away.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, because we have a
Yeah.
student.
What did he say?
When you hit the at sign.
As soon as you hit at, the autocomplete goes away. So you can,
Well, there we go. Then we're turning that on. Fantastic.
Staff and students separated, so I just do one for staff.
Yeah.
It autofills for them.
Yeah. So the trick here, though, is that it's a device setting, and our devices are all in the same OU. Whether it's, we just keep them all together so that when we try to keep the settings the same, I don't have to change it in multiple places for changing something. So it was just a shortcut I took, and it was going to bite me on that. But I think I can live with that. The staff can type the at and go forth. So
we have it autocompleting the student stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So when a teacher goes, just type your
Yeah.
name and at, and fill it out the rest.
cool. So I'll be setting that up. That's nice. Okay. So we're not going to go through all of this stuff. This one's important, though. User data. Erase all local user info settings in state after each sign out, and I have that set. And erase all local data. So this is kind of a trade-off here. Erase local data means that if the students save anything on the Chromebook, if they download a file or anything like that, if they do anything that's set on this device, it's going to wipe it when they log out. And they're not going to have that the next time they log in. The reason we do that, though, is that these guys only have 16 gigs of storage. And if you have, 10, 20 different kids using a Chromebook every day and saving stuff, that local storage fills up really fast. And once it's full, they start getting scary warnings that the device is almost full, and then when it's completely full, they start getting problems where they can't download things or they can't do stuff. And we were finding that we were having to have our technicians go around and wipe Chromebooks, just wipe the storage, but clean out the storage a lot. It was taking a lot of time. And so rather than have them have to do that, we just said, okay, we're just going to wipe the local storage when they log out. That's.
So isn't there an also setting for force Google Drive? So it forces everything they say
Yeah.
to their Google.
Yeah. So there's some things you can do to mitigate that, yeah. You can just say, look, it's going to go right to Google Drive instead of downloading locally. So that's a good idea to set that if you're erasing local data, because otherwise they're going to lose it. Yeah. So there was, I have completely lost my train of thought here. Hopefully I'll get it back, because there's something else this does that we didn't like.
User tracking.
User tracking, that's it. Thank you. Okay. If you want to know who last used a Chromebook and when, you can do that. You can go in and see, okay, the last person who signed into this Chromebook was Joey Smith, and it was at 10 o'clock this morning. So when a Chromebook goes missing, you can say, okay, who logged into this thing? Oh, Joey Smith had this one last. Let's go talk to Joey. That does not work if you are erasing local data. That's the trade-off. If you erase local data, it does not track the last time someone logged, who the last user was. If you go into the inventory piece, it's not going to show who the last user was. So, something to think about. If you need to be able to do that, then you have to have that erase local data turned off. So
That's one of those things they ought to change eventually, make it a centrally logged thing instead of logged on.
yeah, for sure.
That would be huge.
Yeah, and I imagine they probably will. I mean, generally, if there's something like that where we go, boy, it'd be nice if it did this, someone at Google's probably thought the same thing at some point, and they'll probably eventually get around to it. But
Well, with the tracking data, it doesn't really help though because it just gives you a list of users.
yeah.
And
It
a
shows
list of date and
timestamps,
time. Well, it does, but it's
Yeah.
not specific, and the list isn't in order either. So
Oh, it's not?
No.
I
Okay.
think it showed, I think they say up to 15, but
Yeah.
I've seen more that goes
well, and
longer.
it's not in order, so you can't. Be
Yeah,
like,
it's
this
not in
time is
order,
This
it
kid.
doesn't have the
Okay.
exact timestamp for,
Okay. Well, I'm glad we're not missing out on
You're
much
not
then.
missing anything.
Okay. All right. Sign-in screen. If you don't turn this one on, if you say you're going to show names and photos, then you get the little tiles on the sign-in screen that shows the user picture that user has for each kid, and eventually it fills up. And then you get teachers calling and saying, no one, I can't have a kid log into the Chromebook because there's no room left for the kid, or, I don't like this because the kids can see who's used the Chromebook or whatever it is. It just caused a lot of grief for us. So we turned that off. We said never show usernames and photos, which means it just has a username and password prompt at the sign-in screen. And most of our staff like that. There's been a couple that missed the old way because they just had a number assigned for each kid. You get number 1, and then when the kid went to number 1, their picture was there, and they could just type their password in and go. So it made it a little longer for signing in for some of the younger kids especially, but it's also prevented that issue of it getting full or they can't find their picture or whatever it is. Yeah.
When you set these settings up, these device settings, is this once and for all for your whole domain, or can you divvy this up like an OU?
You can divvy this up. So this is
Something like that might make a lot more sense in an elementary setting
Right.
than it would in a high school one, for example.
correct.
You might have 160 kids use the one Chromebook, where in elementary you have 25.
Exactly. So these device settings are only going to apply to this OU that I have selected right now. If I go into the elementary OU, I can change this setting and it'll only apply to the elementary OU. Yeah, again, we're not doing that because we are trying to keep it so that every Chromebook has the same device settings, but that very well may not be what works best for another district.
and then like under all those categories, you'll see how it says locally applied, that's because we have the upper level.
Yeah,
If you go down and you break inheritance,
yeah,
well, it'll say either inherited or locally applied.
right. Yeah, so I'm at the top level now, so anything I set here is going to be inherited by all these others unless I specifically go in and say change it to something else.
So there is a way you can disable inheritance too.
You can't disable inheritance, but you can override it per setting. Yeah. Okay. Kiosk apps. This is important if you're going to be doing smarter balance testing on your Chromebooks. There is a kiosk app that Smarter Balance puts out that you need to install in your management here in order to do state testing. So you'd go to Manage Kiosk Applications, you'd search the Chrome store for Air Secure Test, and set that up. What that does is it puts a little icon on the toolbar of the sign-in screen down at the bottom left that says Air Secure Test. And they click on that, and it automatically launches the secure test browser without them having to sign in first. And that's the only way to test on a Chromebook. You can't just go to this, you can't go to the Smarter Balance site and have the kids sign in. They have to go through that secure browser. So that's where you set that. If you'd like to do state testing, you can schedule reboots or shutdowns. You can tell it whether to automatically update or not. So right now I have mine set to auto update. However, at some point during the year, I will probably change this, because before too long, I'm sure we'll get a notification from Smarter Balance that says we're not going to support Chrome OS above version 45 or whatever it is. And once that happens, I'm going to come in here and say, okay, I'm going to restrict Google Chrome version to 40 whatever Smarter Balance tells me they won't support above. And we'll have it sit at that until either they tell us, yeah, you can move forward, or until we're done with testing, and then I'll set it to auto update and not care about what version. So I was hoping to do that a little earlier than I was able to do this year, because it's nice to get them all updated before the kids leave for the summer, so that they're not all frantically trying to update as the kids come in September. Didn't quite make that this year. The schools were still testing kind of right up to the wire, so we set that in June, early June, but we didn't get all the labs didn't get it. Google will do a staggered update when you have auto update set. They're not just going to immediately send the update to every device you have. It'll kind of go, okay, you've got however many thousand, we're going to send it to a couple hundred every day until we get everybody up to date. I don't know what their algorithm, how that works as far as what it decides to update and when, but you won't get it all at once. So we've had kind of a trickle of them updating, and now I think we're finally there where everything's up to 45 now. Release channel, you can have some of your Chromebooks set to be in, have I lost my, uh-oh. Oh, you can't change it on the, okay, I always forget that. It won't let me even do this pull-down menu, because on the top-level domain you can't change this setting. But if you're in another OU, if you have a set of Chromebooks, you can change them from the stable channel to the release channel, which means they get the very, very latest and greatest version of Chrome OS before it hits the release channel. And Google recommends that you have 10% of your Chromebooks set that way, so that if a new update comes out, you find out that it breaks something with 10% of your machines before it hits stable and breaks it for all of your machines. So that might be a good thing to do. Figure, okay, I'm going to have this one cart at one school, and I'm going to put it in its own organization, and I'm going to set it to the release channel. And then, I've got this one technology teacher at the high school that's really on top of things, and she's going to call me and tell me, hey, these just broke. And then I know, okay, something's up in this new release coming out. We can skip most of this stuff. Time zone you can set if you want to. Disabled device return instructions. So that message that came up when I went to disable the device, this is where you set that. It gives you a little box here. You type in what's going to show up when you hit disable device, what's going to appear there. Okay, so that's device settings. Let's go to user settings here. We got about 20 minutes left. We should have time to get through that. So there's even more settings on the user side than there were on the device side. So we're going to skip a lot of these. Again, if you see one that looks interesting that you'd like to know more about, it's in the documentation. You can find it there. Another thing that's nice is next to all of this stuff, as you're going through the admin console, you'll see these little black question mark symbols. If you click on that, it will take you to the web page for the documentation for that section. So if you have a question about, what is this Chrome mobile beta thing, you can click that little question mark, it'll take you to the documentation. There's also the little light bulb, which is a little tool tip that gives you some information about certain things, like this one here says only supported on Android. So this is a way to manage the Chrome browser on mobile devices, but it's not going to apply to Chromebooks, so we can ignore that. Okay, so here's wallpaper. If you want your users to have a certain desktop background, this is where you can set that, and that will apply to all the users that are in this OU. So if I went to my elementary OU, in fact, let's do that. Nope. The admin console is diligent about making you sign in every 15 minutes or so, which is nice for security, but annoying when you're trying to work in it. And we're loading. Eventually. And then it kicks you right back out to the beginning. Thank you, Google. Wrong thing. Chrome management. User settings.
The other button that I have a lot of IT and teachers use is the send feedback button.
Yeah.
And because Google's so fast, and I just say, all the teachers are having the issue, have all the teachers send in feedback.
Yep.
It'll happen.
Yeah. Yeah, they are good at listening. I mean, especially, you can see it in things like Google Classroom. That launched last summer, and the number of changes they've made to that thing is pretty amazing in the last year. I mean, all the when it launched, we're like, boy, this is really great, but if only it did these things, all that stuff's in it now. And it's because people gave that feedback. You can submit feedback online. We talked to Google folks that showed up at conferences. We talked to the Google rep at ACPE, and a lot of that stuff that we wanted ended up getting rolled into it. So, all right. So if I wanted to change the desktop background for my elementary students, I can do that right here. Here's my enrollment controls. So place Chrome device in user organization during manual enrollment. That can be nice if you are going to have your devices in separate OUs. What this means is the Chrome device is going to get automatically placed in the organization of the user that enrolled it. So if I want, if I buy 30 new Chromebooks and I know I want them all to be in my elementary organization, I just need to enroll them with an account that's also in elementary. So I could just pick a student account, or I could make one, elementary enrollment at NCLAC or whatever. As long as that account is in this organization, any Chromebook it enrolls is going to go in that organization too, which is nice because then I don't have to go back and move them later. Moving them is kind of a pain. So if you can enroll them and have them go where you want them to go right out of the gate, that's going to be fantastic. Otherwise, you either have to go into the admin console and kind of band select everything and move it over, or you have to get really fancy with some scripting tools or the APIs if you're a programmer. So it can be done, but it's not fun. So if you can have them enrolled and go where they belong, that's definitely what you want. Enrollment permissions here, you can set who has the ability to enroll devices or not. I have that not set, which means that anybody can, it doesn't matter what account they use, it can enroll the device. So I don't really care. I don't think there's much danger of kids bringing in their own Chromebooks and enrolling them. If that happens, I guess we'll get bit and lose $30. But I'm not too concerned about that. I'd rather just have it be, I don't care who's logging in, or if we have a high school student come in to help with enrollments, I don't have to go and give them permission. I already have it. Just here, kids, go to enroll and type in your own account and go through. I can set what kind of apps and extensions they can run. We're not controlling any of this, but if I didn't want the kids to install browser extensions, I could turn that off. This is where you can install apps for folks. So notice this is a user setting, not a device setting. So if your teacher comes to you and says, I want it so that whoever logs into this Chromebook gets this great app I found, unfortunately it doesn't work like that. You can't do it per device, it's per user. So you'd have to identify, okay, who are the kids that need this, and do it that way. So all of our elementary students are getting these 10 apps that we have identified as ones that we want our kids to be using in the classroom. There's some stuff for scanning QR codes, Video Note, Google Classroom, Move Note, Voice Note. Share to Classroom is a new one that lets them just, they can put something right into Google Classroom by using that. It's pretty nice. I don't know what Dogo News is, but somebody wanted it. So any elementary student that signs into a Chromebook is going to get those apps, guaranteed. They're going to be in their apps already. Anything beyond that, they're going to have to go add them themselves. I can block apps. If I have a particular app that's causing problems, I can come in here and block that one. Like, for example, if your high school students install the app that turns all web images into a random image of Nicolas Cage from Google Image Search. That didn't.
Shrek happened.
Shrek, nice. Okay.
Troll your friends.
Yeah. The Nicolas Cage one, I was like, kind of mad that I have to fix this, but that's kind of funny. Like So you could block the Nicolas Cage face everywhere app if that's causing you a problem. Pinned apps and extensions are ones that are going to show up in the bottom of the toolbar here. So the only one we have pinned is Google Classroom. Other than that, we figure we'll let the kids put their own apps in the toolbar if that's what they want. Chrome Web Store, you can set your own collections of apps if you'd like to do that and make it so that they can get to those. We're not going to go into how to do that. That's a topic for another time. But again, if you click the little question mark here, it'll take you to the page that tells you all about how to do that. But you can have your own section that only your folks can get to in the App Store. If you wanted to have your own custom apps up there, you could do that. Or if you wanted to make a collection that says, these are the apps that we've kind of curated and said we want our kids to use these, so go pull from these, you can do that. You can recommend particular apps and extensions as well.
What's the difference between those two things?
Recommended, I believe, is just, you're just saying, yeah, this one's good. The other one is you can actually set it so they only see those apps if they go to the Chrome Web Store. So that's, but if you don't turn that on, then there's not much difference. But if you do turn that on, your own little section is the only thing they can see, whereas the recommended, it says, yep, we like this one. So I think what it does is the recommended apps, I think, is a search they can do in the Chrome Web Store. I think they can search for apps that have been recommended by their domain, but it doesn't come up as like, these are the apps that you should have. A lot of things for passwords, screen locking, incognito mode, we have that turned off. We don't feel like there's any reason the kids need to be browsing incognito, but if for some reason you did, you could have that available. We always save the browser history.
So
Yeah.
you have incognito disabled and it's locked down to only your domain. So what if a user has their own data created in their personal account?
Well, the incognito mode just is the Chrome thing where you can switch
But if
to.
you have it enabled, then you can go in incognito mode and log into their personal account and then share it if needed. Or
True. Yeah.
we currently don't have guest disabled yet, and we don't have it locked down to our domain, but we're going to.
Yeah.
And we're going to leave incognito mode enabled in case they do have data in their personal account.
Right.
They can then share it to their work.
Do they even have to go incognito though? I don't think they
If you
do.
log into the device with your.
You can still log in with another. You just have to go log in with another account. That's actually kind of like the. Yeah, that's our teachers haven't appreciated that, but yeah, if you're logged into the Chromebook, you can still log into another Google account if you just go if you go to the little picture up at the top and say add account. No, you don't have to log out. You just go add account, put in your personal, and you're in. You don't have to. Yeah. No, it doesn't associate them. It's just we've had that happen a couple times. The teacher said, the kids are logging into their personal accounts. Like, unfortunately, there's nothing to stop them from doing that. If they hit that add account thing, they can put in their credentials and off they go.
You say you wipe local information, and yet you say you also save browser history. That sounds conflicting to me. Am I missing something?
No. While they're still logged in, we can see it.
Okay.
It's probably not going to do anything for us, but if they.
I did this 2 days ago, and it must save it somewhere because we log back in and has that saved in their browser history. So even on a different machine.
Yeah, I can. Well, that's true because it does save that in their Chrome profile. Actually, that's true.
Oh, so it's okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. If it's saving browser history as part of their Chromebook.
Yeah.
So the local data is just like the downloads.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just old school, and I'm used to the assumption that browser is stored locally.
Right.
On a Windows or a Mac, that would be the case.
It does get stored locally if you're not erasing local data, but then this is, if they're on, it's only if they're signed in to Chrome. which they are if they're on a Chromebook. If they're on, a regular desktop, they're usually not signed into Chrome because signing into your Google account doesn't sign you into the Chrome browser, and vice versa.
That begs another question.
Yeah.
Do these user settings take effect on someone who's using a non-Chromebook that signs into their account?
Yes, they do.
That's interesting.
Yeah, if you sign into the Chrome browser on any device, these settings apply to that account.
So it can dump apps, extensions, and everything.
Yes, it can.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it will also do restrictions too. So if your teachers go home and sign into their Chrome browser at home with their work account and suddenly can't do stuff and get cranky about it,
Well,
you have to tell them, no, we're not controlling your computer at home. You're just signing in with your work account, and guess what? Your work account has restrictions on it. So, yeah, we've had that one a couple of times. Yeah, the staff are pretty free in what they can do. And we try not to push apps to them too much because we figure they can get the apps if they want them, and if they don't want them, we don't want to bother them with having this stuff show up. So
No, I'm more thinking about for kids.
yeah, safe browsing. Always enable safe browsing means that it's going to use Google's safety mode filters when they go to Google search or Google image search, things like that. That can be a nice thing to turn on. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. Malicious sites always allow a user to proceed anyway to malicious sites. We have this turned on just because we've had some cases where it was a false positive, and there was a site that a legitimate site a teacher was trying to go to that was coming up as being malicious.
Who determines what's malicious?
Google has some database that says this is a malicious site. It's usually right. I mean, usually if it says it's malicious, it's because that site's been distributing malware or something like that. But it caused a disruption when we had that enabled, so now we're like, The worst thing that happens on the Chromebook is that they get a pop-up that they have to close, so we'll take the risk. But you may not want to. There's some single sign-on stuff, which we're not going to go into. If you're doing single sign-on, you probably know how to set that up. Proxy. This one could be important if you're doing some kind of one-to-one, or if the kids are taking the Chromebooks home. You probably will want to set up a proxy server so that they're still being filtered with that device, even if it leaves your network. We don't currently have Chromebooks leaving our building. We probably will in the near future. We have a new math curriculum that's all online that we're starting this year, so we're almost certainly going to have kids checking out Chromebooks. And before we'll let them do that, we're going to set up a proxy server that the Chromebooks will connect through, and so that they're still filtered even when they're on the internet outside of our building. Probably something you want to do. If you're giving the kid that device, you want to be able to say that it's filtered. So startup, you can do some various things. You can set the home page that they get. So we have the home page set to our district home page. This is one where the schools would like that to be their own, so we may need to break that out by school and say, okay, you get your school homepage instead of the district one. Pages to load on startup. If you know that every time the kids go into the Chromebooks, you want it to load drive.google.com or whatever, you can put that in here. I'm hurrying to get through this because we only have about 5 minutes left. More safe search stuff. Again, probably a good idea to turn that on. Cookies, you can set cookie policies if you want to do that. Images, you can show images or not. You can just turn pictures off if you want to. You can set JavaScript settings. You can set whether they can do browser plugins or not. URL blocking, so you can blacklist URLs. If you have a site you'd never want your kids to go to, you can put that in here and they will never be able to get to it. Printing, again, you can turn printing on for these folks. This just means they can print from their Chromebook or not. So even if you have printing set up on the Chromebook, at the user level you can just disable printing. So you could set up your Chromebooks to all be able to print, but then say, okay, students have printing disabled, and so only staff can print. User experience, manage bookmarks. So we have 3 different bookmarks that we put on everybody who logs in. Our typing club, STAR, we have STAR reading that the kids do in this Envision Math program that we just got. So all 3 of these bookmarks show up for the kids whenever they sign in. You can do some things with Google Translate. You can have multiple sign-ins, so multiple users can sign into the Chromebook at once. We have that turned off. We only want 1 student at a time logged in. You can do some things with turning on audio inputs and things like that. So that was a lot of information, but that's it for the user settings. So that's the big stuff. Again, remember, user settings apply to the user no matter what device they're logged into, whether it's your Chromebook or their own Chromebook or their MacBook at home that they're using Chrome browser. Those user settings apply to that account no matter where it goes. Device settings apply to any account that signs into the device, no matter what account it is. If it's your account or someone else's account or anything, those settings are going to apply. All of this is in the admin console. Again, you need the management licenses to do device management, but you do not need the management licenses to do user management. So take that into account. I would recommend getting the licenses because you're going to want to do device management at some point. But if you just want to try it without spending any money, you can do all the user settings without doing that. So we've got about 2 minutes left. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything like that? Yes?
Does anybody run into the Chromebook switching into like Chinese
Yes.
problem?
All the
Does
time.
anybody have a good solution
No.
for it?
No, it doesn't. No, just the kids can go in and change the
Oh,
language. There is not a management setting to set the language that the system is set to. Unfortunately, that is one I would really like to see because when the kids go in and change it, you have to go to that device and go in and change it.
Google's best suggestion was to blacklist Chrome //settings.
Oh.
Chrome //settings-frames.
Yeah.
Which in theory prevents it from happening.
Yeah.
But then a week
That
later, I
sound-
got a call with the exact same thing.
Yeah, I don't know that I would want to do that one, but yeah. Unfortunately, there is not a good solution for that right now. Get used to where the buttons are in the menu so you can find it when it's in Mandarin.
Gotten really good at
Yeah, exactly.
HTTPS, SSL,
Spatial
go to
awareness,
block,
yeah.
click
So,
button. Anybody else?
All right, we'll let you out a minute early then. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.
I appreciate it.